One of the fascinating things about creating a character and discovering them and fleshing them out is the moment when you actually sit down to start writing dialogue and you hear the character's voice in your head for that first time. They kind of come alive. That moment, that instance where you cease to be a conscious writer and you're just sort of transcribing what your character is saying. That moment of surprise really is kind of the essence of playwriting. That's for me where the joy is.
There's always a piece of me in every one of the characters that I write, even when the characters are not human. I always seem to draw on something from my own experience, my own life, or just a part of my own personality. So that came out very clearly for me in writing this particular monologue.
One human being can be as complicated as 10 characters interacting. And the monologue is a really good way to get at that complexity and give it the space and time it deserves.
When the 2021 theme was announced, I was ready. I read all about borders. Personal borders, territorial borders, agricultural borders, self-imposed borders, religiously decreed borders. And I began to write. And Blanca was right there talking. All I had to do was listen.
One very interesting thing that I happened across is that I chose to write a character that had very sort of strict boundaries, and a little bit into it I thought, what happens if I knock down one of those boundaries to see what happens? So I did, and as soon as I did, it was like opening a floodgate. Everything just came out.
The characters in my monologues tend to be angry and neurotic. Their minor irritations always turn to major aggravations as their focus turns from the problems of the world to their own personal problems.
At times she speaks with a more rural inflection, which I think is more closer to her inner narrative and how she speaks to herself. And then at times she speaks with a more suburban, contained sophistication of sorts. And so that in the way and manner that she spoke became to represent a geographical boundary between the inner dialogue of her heart, but also represent where I imagined her living.
I was in a play downtown with an old actress, and she ran out in the middle of a blackout and said, "What scene is this? Am I in this scene? What scene is this?" In the beginning, when I wrote the monologue, I thought I wanted to write about her, but later on I realized I was writing about myself. What would it be like to be an old and dotty actress?
Borders are meant to intimidate, to keep you in or out, to be obeyed, snuck through, broke down. What was unexpected was I learned that borders demanded action, just like a play. What Blanca did mattered. In fact, what Blanca did was the story.
I first created the character Boot for a short comedy. He was very relaxed and easygoing and confident. But when I wrote this monologue, I took him out of his comfort zone and discovered he had a whole range of emotions, from anger, frustration, despair, to joy.
Once you grab onto an idea for the story, the setting, and you can fall into a character and follow this character down the rabbit hole, find the essence of the character. It's so primal, it's so primitive, raw, and you just let yourself go. You stop thinking when you're writing. That's what I love, not to think.
Thanks to that monologue, I realized I would be okay. I am now old and, yes, slightly dotty. And I'm doing fine.